There we go.
Folks, we are live on the podcast by Carl Jones, paranormal investigator,
Paranormal teacher, and a member of the new podcast that's taken Central Illinois by storm, Paranormal Party 8. Carl, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. Good to talk to you tonight.
Good to have you on here.
Everybody's doing well out there.
We were actually talking backstage before the show started. We were talking about, because Carl's a paranormal investigator, we were talking about a lot of the things that we've seen, like Havana Gym, and you were telling me about this location down in Campsville, correct?
Well, it's before you get to Campsville, it's close to the river in Eldred, Illinois. And it's the Eldred House, and it is a fascinating place. It's an old limestone built former home, and it is most definitely haunted. I've investigated. It's been several years now, but I've been down there a couple of times.
Is this it here?
That's it.
Oh, that looks like baby.
And it's most definitely haunted, but it's actually we've kind of determined that it's former family members that used to live there.
Oh, really?
A lot of the stuff that's going on. It's also built on Native American grounds.
Oh, that's always a good. Why did he do that?
And it there was actually supposedly a Native American chief buried out in the front yard.
Oh,
and people have heard. I had a good friend who was a paranormal investigator who was there by herself. She got there early and was sitting in her car, and it was dark out. I mean, it was dark. But she was just sitting out in the car by herself, and she heard drums just like a beat, just, and it freaked her out because she's like, what is that? And there's really no homes all that close. There's a home across the road, but it's down a little ways, and it wasn't coming from there. She said it was coming from the yard of that home.
Why is it back in the day we used to build this stuff on ancient Indian grounds,
Well, it's because I think in the case of this home is it just so happens that that's where most Native Americans put that's why Campsville has a lot of the Native American sites. Mm-hmm. It's because it was close to the river. So perfect hunting ground. I mean, all animals have to drink. So what better place to have it on kind of a higher location a little bit, but you can view things, and you're close to the water where the animals have to go drink and so forth. And it's a good way to transport back up and down the river, So, yeah, I mean, they just happen to settle along rivers a lot. So that whole area, all Illinois along the river is Native American rich.
Well, I know it's Meridosha back in the late 90s. They had that big thing when they found a bunch of Native American relics, and I think they actually found some bones, and some of the local tribes were like, no, you got to leave that alone.
Yeah.
And I think it was Illinois College who was digging all that up.
Could be. Yeah.
I think it was. And they just decided, you know what, they're right, because, there's so much there, because I think they said they thought Blackfoot Indians, which my grandmother was very much Blackfoot Indian, my great-grandmother. They just decided, just leave it alone, put it back, and don't touch with this stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, have you guys ever seen the movie Poltergeist? That's why you don't build stuff on burial grounds,
Well, just for a short little interlude, I went to Springfield High in Springfield, Illinois, of course. It's notoriously built over a cemetery that they didn't move the bodies. They only moved the headstones.
Yes.
So
and the
school is haunted.
Yeah.
And it's not just, they know about, they found a tombstone of a little girl when they were digging the elevator shaft. But she's not the only one there. There's actually several different spirits in Springfield High School. And it's an interesting place. I mean, that whole area over there, I used to give a walking tour over in what they call Old Aristocracy Hill. I don't know if you're familiar with that area in Springfield, but it's like starts around the Capitol building and goes for several block area south, almost to South Grand.
Uh-huh.
And then it encompasses several blocks. And the inn at 835 is where we began our investigations, which is notoriously haunted.
I think, weren't you there? You were doing that this past October, right?
It wasn't this past October. It's actually been a couple years ago that I did it for a couple of seasons. But it was wonderful, and we included the Dana Thomas home, which is notoriously haunted.
Yeah.
The old Legacy Theater, the Legacy Theater in Springfield, they're off of Lawrence. The Phoenix Center. The church right next to the inn at 835. It's a cathedral, Episcopalian cathedral, I believe it is.
Uh-huh.
The actual Capitol building, not the old state Capitol, but the big state Capitol building is haunted. We had, when I was a member of Springfield Ghost Society, well, I guess I still am. I have been almost since the beginning. But they got called in there by Governor Ryan. Remember Governor Ryan, who?
Yes.
George Ryan.
Yes.
His wife called in Springfield Ghost Society. Now, I wasn't with them on this particular time. But they went in and did an investigation because there's a lot of stuff that was happening in their office. If I remember, I think someone actually witnessed they'd come in the morning and find chairs flung all over and papers flying all over the place, thrown all over the place. And I think someone actually was in there and they witnessed a coffee cup raise up off the table, move several feet, and then drop.
I'm sorry, I get giddy with this stuff because that sounds like Ghostbuster
crazy
stuff. Yeah.
Crazy stuff. The Howlett building right next to the Capitol building and, kind of behind the museum there. The Howlett building also has activity. Do you know that was the spot that was the old Edwards place? The old Edwards place. That's where Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln got married.
Oh, really?
Right there on the Capitol grounds where the Howlett building now sits, part of it. And there is stories that on the second floor of the Howlett building, and this is from security guards, that they would hear whimpering and crying coming from a particular office on the second floor, which would have been the exact spot of where Mary Todd's room was in the Edwards place. The Edwards home.
Wow.
And you got to think that Mary lost not only her husband, but several children. She was not a happy woman. She was sad. And after, Mr. Lincoln got shot and killed and they brought him back to Springfield. She went back to live at the Edwards place because she was from that family. And then she would have stayed on the second floor. And when the security guards go in, they hear this woman's whimpering and crying. And they go in, they go to open the door and they turn the key. And as soon as they open the door, it stops.
Really?
Many times, yeah. Vinegar Hill Mall right there is incredibly haunted. Many stories from Vinegar Hill Mall. I don't know if there's anything in there now. But that's where the old Bowers Opera House used to be, and several restaurants, and they had a place for bands to perform in there for a while. But anyway, those are a few stories from that area.
You should have went on the Wrestling for a Cure Ghost Walk and been a third host because we went to all those locations.
Yeah,
I didn't know the old state Capitol building. You guys had actually went in there because of paranormal activity. So,
well, the Capitol building, not the old state Capitol.
The old state Capitol building, yeah,
not the old state Capitol. I've never, to be honest, I used to walk in there at night. I used to walk through that place at night because I had access. Because I don't know if you remember this, you may be too young. But there was a show that started on the bicentennial, which was 1976, and it was designed. It was called the Sound and Light Show. And the Sound and Light Show, we would set up bleachers on the south side of the square, and they told the story of Abraham Lincoln in Springfield through sound and light. And lights inside the building would kick on, and you'd hear sounds. This was speakers set up, and they had sounds of wagons going up and down the street and people walking. And they'd, he'd walk up to the Capitol building, and lights would come on where he's at and stuff. So I had to go in and actually check the lighting beforehand, because for the last couple of years, I actually ran that show.
Oh, really?
I actually read the show was on a very wide, several inch wide reel-to-reel tape. And it was in the main office that controlled it all was down a couple floors down of that underground parking under the old state capitol. So it was a little closet that had all the stuff. So I actually read it. So I would have to walk through the building at night. And, me being a paranormal enthusiast, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to run into something, And my dad used to work there for many, many years. And he says, there was never really been anybody notice anything odd at the old state capitol, which surprises me. That's where Abraham Lincoln's body laid in state after he was killed for a long time. And, there's been a lot of happenings over the years, but not that building, but the regular big, tall Capitol building, they're off a second. That's where they were called to. And night watchmen and guards tell you, they hear people walking, they hear talking, they hear doors slamming, so, the place is got activity for sure.
Now, what originally piqued your interest into the paranormal? What was it? Like, everyone I've talked to the guys on Opaghost, and they were like me. They remember watching those old shows like Unsolved Mysteries, Sightings, X-Files, and they were like, I want to see that. I want to see an alien. I want to see a ghost, a Sasquatch. What got you into it?
1978. I was going to Springfield High School, lived in Springfield, lived over by Memorial Hospital, just behind on Herndon Street, of all places. That was actually the street that the old Reich Brewery sat on. I don't know if you're familiar with the Reich beer that was made in Springfield. Now it sat at the end of our street, which is now the SIU Med Center.
Yep.
But anyway, 1978. Around Easter, just before Easter, my dad went to a garage sale and he picked up a couple of items, brought them home, and there was a spirit attached to one of them.
Oh,
we actually experienced a haunting at our home in Springfield.
So he bought a ghost at a garage sale, basically.
Yep.
That happens.
Yep. And that's one of the things I tell people in my classes that I teach. I teach classes on paranormal, Lincoln Land Community College. We'll talk about that later. But I tell people, be very, very careful of what you pick up. And antique stores are notoriously haunted because, they just got a lot of activity happening in there. And because of all the antiques, things can be haunted. That's one of the points that we have experienced when we do investigations. There's been times when people say, we've lived here for years. And this was the case with our home in Springfield. We lived there for years and never had anything happen until after my dad brought home this old antique trunk. It was an old packing trunk. It looked like a treasure chest.
Right.
Pretty good size.
A buddy of mine, he owned an antique shop, and they were closing it down because they just couldn't pay the rent anymore. And I was helping them move stuff out. He gave me because you're talking about haunted items you bring home that has a spirit attached to it. He gave me a Civil War scabber, or it's somewhere around that area. It's the old officer's sword. And I brought that home. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I put it on the bar. It's sitting on the bar. It just sits there on a little stand. I respect it and all that stuff. But after we brought it home, ever since, my fiance claims. Now I haven't seen it, and I went through, and everybody knows I'm a big ghost hunter. I got got a few things here. I got like a RIM pod and whatnot, but my fiance from time to time, she will see what she claims is a Civil War soldier.
Wow.
She said she woke up one night, he was sitting on the bed, just looked at her, faded. I've had people tell me they'll go to my bathroom and they'll hear old ragtime, like, campfire music.
Wow,
Like
that's neat.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I ever experienced was a door shut randomly once. And I was like, oh, that must be the ghost. So it must look at me like, no, I don't want to talk to that guy. That guy, he's crazy. Now that lady there, she's not too bad, but she never gets a bad feeling from this. So, and we'll have animals. We have cats and dogs. They'll walk into a room and just stare, and I'm like, you gotta be staring at that ghost. So, what was some of the stuff that happened at your house?
Oh my goodness! I'll tell you what. You can actually get this in print because a very good friend of mine, Larry Wilson, who's written several paranormal books. He actually published. He had me write up the story, and it's in one of his books called "Strange Williamsburg Hill," and it's about a place down by Tower Hill, about down in about an hour and a half from here or so. And it's about a fascinating place that's haunted as all get out, Williamsburg Hill. And he put it at the end of that story, and it's got the whole story in it. But basically, things that started happening is the first thing that we kind of determined happened was this was about a night or two after they brought that thing home, and they put it downstairs, which is where I stayed at the time as a teenager, and right down the hall from where my bedroom is. And I heard this incredibly loud. It's like this. We're talking like 2:00 in the morning, and I heard this incredibly loud noise, and it sounded to me like it was right above my head, like where my parents were upstairs. And I thought, what the heck is going on? Are they moving something around down there? What's going on? So if you see movement out of the corner there, that's my buddy Russell sitting in here.
Oh, hi, Russell.
He's also part of the Paranormal Party of 8.
Also, we have another. You can
say hi, Russell.
Bring him on. Hello. Yeah, if he wants to talk, he's more than welcome to. So
yeah, and his wife is Patty. Hopefully, Patty's listening, and Patty kind of was the one who got this group started, the Paranormal Party of 8, and it was she's a really good psychic medium.
Oh, hi, Patty.
She's wonderful to have on investigations because she sees things. She sees them. If she can communicate with them.
Yeah, I have one of the members of my old ghost hunting group here, Amanda Kluge. She joined right before
Amanda,
break, but
I see she's making comments.
Yeah, she's big into the paranormal. She's like, "Oh, we got to go out on a full moon. That's when it's really big."
You know what? You know what I found over the years? It's not the full moon. Although full moon makes people act strange, the crime rate goes up. The hospitals, the ER rooms are busy. They try to fully staff ER rooms on full moons because people do stupid things. But at Williamsburg Hill, the book is written about, it's a creepy place, and there's some really wild stories out of there. You need to pick up the book if you haven't seen it. If you ever run across it or get it on Amazon or something. There's a guy that lives up there, and he lives very close to it, and he knows all the crazy stuff that goes on there. And he said, if you really want to see a lot of activity, he says, come when there's a new moon, which it basically means there's no moon at all. He said, and some of the research that I've done is that things are actually more paranormally active on a new moon than on a full moon. Now, if a place is haunted, it's haunted 24 hours a day. It's not, or if there's activity, it doesn't matter when it is. A lot of the stuff we had happen to us was during the daylight.
Oh, really?
During the broad daylight. I mean, all these ghost shows, they're at nighttime. Well, they're just wanting to show you all their flashy equipment, and it's for the creep factor.
Yeah.
But if a place is haunted, most of my investigations and on my classes, when I take them to a place, It's during the day, and we had a lot of stuff happen during the day. But anyway, yeah, new moons are a hot time to do paranormal investigation too. When there's basically it's really dark and there's like no moon in the sky
Right.
whatsoever. But some of the stuff that happened to us, 1978, getting back to that story.
Yes.
I heard this incredibly loud noise. I hopped up, scared the hell out of me. I hopped up, I go upstairs, open the door, and my mom yells from the bedroom, "What the hell are you doing downstairs? Sounds like what is that noise? What was that noise?" I said, "Well, I thought it was up here. I thought you guys were moving furniture or something." That's the first thing that happened.
Uh-huh.
After that, all hell broke loose. I mean, we had a hair dryer. You know the old handheld hair dryers that are real loud.
Yep.
We had one in our bathroom that would go off all the time, and nobody around it. We're sitting in the other room, and the hair dryer goes off, and there's been time when I'd have to go in there like 3 or 4 times a day and shut off the hair dryer, and I actually unplugged it, but then it got plugged back in somehow.
Oh, that's the stuff that creeps me out. Is how you'll do something like that. And it'll just get plugged in. It's like that padlock in Havana I was telling you about before we went on. It's like, how in the hell did that get down? How the hell did that get plugged in?
Yeah, and it just kept going. And my mom would get up, and she's the one who noticed a lot of this going on because she worked. I was at school during the day, but she was there by herself because my dad worked all kinds of different hours. And she would have a lot of stuff happen. She said she got up in the middle of the night to get a drink. And we always, kept our doors double locked. We had a couple locks on the front door. And she got up one night, not long after we heard that noise. And the front door was sitting open.
Oh.
And she says, "I know I shut that door and double locked it."
Ooh,
And she was going to the kitchen and she looked over and she saw like the street light shining in. And she's like, "What the heck is that?" And she looks over and the door's sitting open. Now the chain lock was still attached. So the door was only open, as much as the chain lock.
It was cracked. Yeah.
Yeah. And she goes, "I know I checked that door before I went to bed." She actually came home one day. Get this. This is what's scary. She came home one day and went to unload some groceries. She had been at the store, and she goes in the kitchen, and the stove is on.
Oh shit!
And there was a pan sitting on the burner. And she picked up the pan and she thought, "Oh my gosh, how did that get turned on? There's not been anybody here." And the pan was cold.
The pan was cold?
The pan was cold.
So wait. The oven is on.
The stove is on.
The stove is on.
Gas stove. It was gas stove, so there was flames.
Right. The stove is on. And
yes.
Somehow there's a pan on the stove.
Yes.
But the pan is cold?
Yes. Yeah. I'm telling you. And it's strange. And she's like, well, so she figured, well, it must have just got turned on as soon as I walked in the kitchen. That's all she could imagine. But it gets where she also, we had our clothes dryer and our washer was downstairs. So she was up in her room and she kept hearing something. It's like, I don't have any clothes going. What is that noise? It sounds like the dryer going. And if you're familiar with dryers, electric dryers, they get hot pretty fast.
Yes, they do.
And she was hearing this thing going, like there was thump, 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 like something in the dryer. She goes downstairs and the dryer's running and nobody around it. And she reaches in there because there was a few pieces of clothing in there. That's what she was hearing. And it was cold. In her hand, it had been going for some time because she had heard it for a while. She reached in there to touch the clothes and there was no heat. The funny thing is, the dryer wasn't broke. It worked fine after that.
So that's 2 instances where you had some source of heat activated, whether it be the stove or the dryer,
Yeah.
and there was no heat
Yeah.
at all. The ghost must
Yeah.
have been cold. The ghost must have been like, I gotta warm up a little bit here. But that's just crazy. That door story, I'm like, that's like that would
Oh,
mess
oh,
with me.
oh, it gets better.
Oh, it gets better. We haven't even gotten to the best parts of this.
It gets better. There was a time that my aunt had given my dad, because my dad was a hunter and a fisherman, and he loved deer hunting particularly. And she had an old cuckoo clock that
Oh no.
that never worked because the pendulum was missing off of it. The little
Oh,
thing that
okay.
hangs underneath and goes back and forth.
Uh-huh.
So my dad said, well, maybe I can, because he was kind of a handyman and he did woodworking and all kinds of stuff, wood carving and stuff. So he said, maybe I can fashion a pendulum for this and get it to work again. Well, he tried. He made all different kinds of pendulums and different things. He never could get it to work. There was just a little piece of metal with a hole in it where the pendulum would hang.
Right.
Somehow the pendulum got lost over the years, but it was a really cool clock because it had deer on it. And so we had it hanging in our living room anyway, just for decoration. And we had never heard the thing go off before. But my mom and I were at the house, and we had just got done watching some old creepy movies like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane or something like that, one of those old scary movies. And we're sitting in there just lounging in the living room, and we heard this thing go cuckoo, cuckoo, and we're like, what the hell was that? Was that on the movie? And we look up at the clock, and the little birds popping in and out of the thing.
The ghost fixture. Cuckoo.
Well, I get up and I walk over to that clock, and that little piece of metal that has no weight on it for a pendulum, which has to have weight, was swinging back and forth.
Oh.
So I reached up and I stopped it. And I said, Dad tried making all kinds of things to get this to work. It wouldn't, he couldn't get it to work.
Uh-huh.
And I stopped it. And about that, right after I stopped it, I mean, a matter of a second or two after I stopped it, the radio that it was an old clock radio that was sitting in the back bedroom came on full blast, loud rock and roll music. Full blast. And the radio wasn't even turned on. I went back there and I had to physically pick it up. I mean, it was loud.
Wow.
And I had to pick it up and shut it off. And I'm looking, I'm like, was the timer set or something? Was the alarm set or something? No, it just went off it just came on full blast by itself.
That is crazy. I love it.
And then another thing that happened, this really creeped me out because I was basically home alone.
Uh-huh.
And I was sitting there, and it was evening. It was dusk. It was at dusk, right before it got dark. And do you know the old shades in the 1970s? They had the old shades that would pull down.
Oh yeah, my
and they kind of locked into place.
Yep.
Well, we had those throughout the whole house, and it was my mom had already pulled down most of them in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So we closed the shades because it was, she had just left not long before, right before dusk. So she closed those shades, and I'm sitting there in the living room, and we had a neighbor that lived up the street. He was young. He was probably about 10 at the time, but he liked to, play practical jokes and stuff. And
right.
And we lived most of the time we were on the second floor. My bedroom was downstairs because there was like a little apartment downstairs. That's where I stayed as a teenager. But and that's where the trunk was, down in that area. But one night I had seen James out. His name was James, and he was running the neighborhood, So I'm sitting in the living room, and I hear like some knocks at the window, which was easily accessible because we were on a hill. But most of the top floor of the home was inaccessible unless you had a ladder, because it was but there was a part by the front door where you could actually knock on the window. I thought it was him. So I hear a knock on the window. So I go over and I throw open the door, and I was ready to yell at him, like, James, what are you doing? You know, what do you want? And so I open the door and there's nothing there. And I thought, well, that's weird. I mean, I definitely heard a knock at the window.
Right.
And I just said, well, after that, right after that, what happened was that the knocking proceeded around the whole entire top floor to every single window, and some were totally inaccessible unless you had a ladder.
Can we ghost hunt your house by chance?
Every single window. And it was a thud. It was loud thuds, and I could actually see the vibration of the window shaking. I went to each room because it was not, the knock happened at each room. It went completely around the top floor of the house and stopped where it started.
Wow.
That was freaking me out. But here's what freaked me out even worse. I went back in and sat down, and I'm trying to go, what the hell is going on here? What was that? How did that even happen? Was there an earthquake? But it went from window to window to window, and perfectly around the whole top floor of the house. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I'm sitting there, and it's quiet. It's quiet. You know, I shut off the TV, and I'm like listening, and it's dark. It's dark by this time, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, the loudest damn noise you ever want to hear happened. And you know what happened? Every single shade that was pulled down in the house flew up at the same time.
Oh, that's it. I'd be gone.
In every room.
Wow.
Every single room. They all flew up at the same time. And if you ever heard a shade go up, you know, you unlatch it and it just flies up. They're loud as hell.
Yep.
In every single room, the shades flew up. I think I peed myself. I mean, it freaked my crap. So I ran out in the yard, you know, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? You know, it took me a long time. We didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
So my parents were gone, you know, and I had to sit in that house, you know, basically I sat outside for a long time. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is creepy stuff, you know.
Was it knocks at the windows? Were they knocks in 3?
No, they were just like boom, 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 boom. And it was almost like they were using the heel of their hand. It was like a thud. It was like a thud sound, not like a knuckles. The first knock was like knuckles.
Uh-huh.
But then all the rest of them were like they were thudding with their hand, and the windows were vibrating.
Like almost frantically.
Yeah, I could see them shake. So it was some force being used.
Wow. So okay, I have a question about. I got multiple questions.
Yeah.
First of all, number one, is that house still haunted to this day? Do you know?
No, it wasn't the house. It was what was brought into the house because we lived there for years. Well, a lot of other things happened. I mean, you know, we'd leave and come home and the lights would be on.
Uh-huh.
I had, you know. One thing I noticed while this was going on downstairs, having to walk to get to my bedroom, that downstairs was freezing cold at that time. Remember, you talked about this ghost might have been cold. Man, I was like, Ed, man, this room is cold. The one where the trunk was. It's like, man, this room, there's cold in here for some reason.
Right.
And we're talking about, it was around Easter time, so it was starting to warm up. The days were. But my dad got a garage sale because typically there's no garage sales at Easter time, but the weather was so nice during then that people started having garage sales, and that's where he bought it over at a home close to Du Bois School. If you're familiar in Springfield, there's a historic old school called Du Bois Elementary School. It's still there. Right. And as a matter of fact, there's a big rock outside with a plaque attached to it. Ulysses S. Grant used to train troops there.
Oh, really?
Cool. Like in that area for a bit. So it was around there somewhere by the old Sacred Heart build place that's long gone. It used to look like a big old mansion that sat there. But anyway, that was just some of the stuff that happened. I mean, we had all kinds of stuff. Now, we trying to tell my dad, he don't really believe in any of this.
How? Okay, hang on. How does he not believe this with everything going on?
He was at work most of the time.
Okay, I get that.
So we're telling him, we're both telling him. I'm telling him this stuff's going on. Mom's telling him this stuff's going on. She's getting freaked out because a lot of stuff, she's hearing noises, she's hearing doors shut, she's hearing this, she's hearing that, and all this stuff going on. And finally, he was home. And there was one day that he was home. I was gone at school. My mom was upstairs fixing my dad lunch because he was taking a shower before he went into work. And he was in the shower. And they heard the door slam downstairs. There was an access to come in the door downstairs. They thought for some reason I had come home early or something. They heard a door slam, and all of a sudden, coming up the steps, and these were carpeted steps, they heard the loudest footsteps, like someone was stomping up the steps. But when they got to the top of the steps, the door never came open. So to show you how heavy the steps were, my dad comes out of the shower.
Uh-huh.
And he comes out and he goes, "Who the hell's stomping on the steps?" He said he could feel the vibration in the shower.
Ooh.
And then my mom says, "I don't know. I opened the door. I thought I heard him stop at the top of the steps. I opened the door and nothing was there." And my dad goes, "What?" So he goes downstairs and walks through the whole place. There's nothing there. There's nobody there. And this is just some of the stories that happened. It's just one thing after another, after another, after another. And my mom kind of pieced it together. She goes, she was talking to a friend, and the friend actually was smart. She goes, "Hey, did you bring anything new into the house? Because we lived there for years and nothing happened."
Right.
And my mom says, "As a matter of fact, we went to a garage sale recently." And she said, my dad saw this. He brought two things home. He brought an old record player, the kind that you had to like wind up and it had like a little horn on it.
Yeah.
It was like the old fashioned type Victrola record players.
Yep.
And he saw this antique trunk and it was in beautiful condition. I mean, we opened up the trunk, you lifted it up and it had an insert in it. It was lined with old contact paper, old wallpaper looking flowery stuff.
Right.
And you lifted the insert out and then there was a space underneath. You could store stuff. You put the insert in and you close it. It was a big, pretty good sized trunk. And anyway, my mom says, "You can buy the record player, but I don't want that trunk." My mom is a bit of a sensitive. And she felt something. She says, I just don't feel right. She goes, "It's okay if you get the record player, but please don't bring that trunk." Well, guess what? She goes out to the car. My dad comes down with both. So what I think happened is they've made him a good deal. They probably said, "I tell you what, we saw you looking at those things. Why don't you, we'll let you have those for this much, Makes me wonder if they knew there was stuff going on with
the family. As soon as they sold that trunk, was like, "Oh, thank God, it's gone.
We got rid of that sucker."
Yeah.
Well, it gets there. The story continues. So my dad starts realizing that, hey, and then he started being around, and my aunts even was over there when the hairdryer would go off by itself, and the radios were turning on by themselves. And all this kind of stuff. I mean, it was just one thing after another, after another, after another. And anyway, this friend that my mom talked to, she goes, "Did you bring anything new?" And she says, "Yeah. As a matter of fact, my husband brought this damn trunk home." And she says, "I didn't want him to bring it, but I just got a bad feeling about it. But he got it anyway. It's downstairs, And so my dad started experiencing more stuff in the house, and he finally said, "Maybe you're right. Something is not right." My mom says, "I'll tell you what." She says, "I'm not spending another night in this house with that trunk in here." She goes, "You're going to have to remove it." And he didn't know where to put it. I mean, he didn't have anywhere to take it at the time. So he set it out in the front yard. Thank goodness, that it didn't rain or anything. So it sat out in the front yard for like 2 nights.
Uh-huh.
And that's where it sat. Guess what? Not a thing happened in the house. So it was around Easter time, there's rain and storms and stuff coming, So he finally talked to his mom, my grandma, who lived in a house with a detached garage. Her garage was separate from the house. And he said, "Hey, Mom, would it be okay if I bring this trunk over, this antique trunk, and put it in the garage for a bit?" And we told her what was going on, that we thought there was weird stuff going on. She says, "I don't care. Go ahead and stick it out there." So it was full of my grandpa's tools and all kinds of stuff. And it had one of those old pulled out. You had to pull a chain to get the light to light up.
Yep.
It was just a light bulb, a bare light bulb with a chain on. My grandma said, and she didn't believe in any of this stuff either, apparently, from what she said anyway. But she said that she heard noises like the tools were being shuffled around out there. And she witnessed the light come on by itself out in the garage because they had a little window in the garage.
Uh-huh.
And she actually witnessed the light come on. So she was beginning to wonder, maybe there was something to this story that they had going on. Well, my dad happened to mention this stuff to one of the guys he works with, and he knew a young couple that collected antiques, and so they said that he talked to that young couple, my dad's friend that he worked with, and they were interested in taking the trunk. And my dad says, "Ooh, I'll give him a really good deal, really good deal on this trunk." So they had, I remember this. They came over in a little pickup truck, and they had 2 kids. They had 2 younger kids, a boy and a girl.
Oh no!
And it was a younger couple. And we told them, we said, we've had some weird stuff happen in our house after we got this trunk, so we just want you to be aware. And they just like, "Oh, okay," they were just kind of like, "All right," But it was a really nice old trunk. So they took it. About 2 nights after they took it, they came and picked it up. Guess what? Everything stopped at the house.
Uh-huh.
Everything stopped at my grandma's house. About 2 nights after, that guy comes down. My dad worked with him that night, and he would work the night shift through the night sometimes. And he goes, "Hey, that couple that got that trunk?" And my dad goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well," he says, they had something weird happen. They said it was about dusk, and they packed the kids up in the car to go to Dairy Queen and get a Dairy Queen after supper. And they were backing out of their driveway after just locking up the house and shutting off the lights, and the lights in the house came on.
Ooh.
By themselves.
So what happened to the trunk ultimately? What? 'Cause I want to know, because
one last thing,
okay.
And this is the last we heard of it. Couple nights later, the guy comes in. He goes, "That couple?" My dad goes, "Yeah, what happened?" He goes, "Well, they stuck it down in their basement, and everybody went to bed that night, and they heard loud footsteps coming up the steps in the middle of the night, right when everybody was starting to fall asleep."
Uh-huh.
That's the last we heard of the trunk.
Wow.
Now, we're talking 1978 here, so who knows where that is? It's still floating around out there somewhere. Very well.
Yeah, Tyler does want the trunk. Yes, Tyler wants.
Tyler, you don't want this. Tell me, you don't want this. It's one thing to go investigate someone else's house that's haunted, but you don't want it in your home.
Oh, I get that. I know there's a lot of people who sit there. There's a difference between people sitting there saying, like, "I want this," and people saying, once you have it, you won't want it.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But the scientific applications, because the big thing about the paranormal is you have to look at everything scientifically. You would probably be able to, with this trunk, and David, who is he's in the chat room, he's asking if you think it might have been an old diebuck box, which is
no, this was a big packing trunk. I mean, it was like and let me tell you a little follow-up to this, Tyler. I had investigated a home which was the oldest home in Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
It was the oldest home in Springfield. It used to sit out on South Fifth Street. They moved it back to its original location. They can only get it within a block. It's a historic home. I'm not going to name what it is, but you could probably guess. But it was one of the oldest homes in all of Springfield. And it now sits in downtown area, not far from Lincoln's home. But I investigated there one time, and there was a few investigators there, and I walked upstairs in this place, and right at the very top of the steps, I walk into this little room that happened to be right across from the top of the steps, and there was a whole room full of them some bitches, a whole room full of these trunks that looked exactly like the one that we had, and that freaked me out. And I went downstairs and I asked a good friend of ours who let us in there, who got us permission to come in and check this place out. And the place, by the way, was incredibly active. All kinds of crazy stuff going on. Maybe it was because of the trunks. I don't know.
Maybe the trunk that you had originally was there.
I don't know. But anyway, there was at least like 6 of them in there.
6 trunks?
In this little room. Yeah, in this little room. And I said, what's the story with those trunks? Because I think she was familiar with what happened to me. I said, I just about crap when I went up there and went in this little room. And here's a bunch of these trunks. And she goes, oh, let me tell you what those are. She said, those are... those came from the, it's like a what do you call those home where the brothers live, like a monastery, that place that's like just, same thing with nuns, where the nuns live.
Yeah.
There's a name, I can't think of it right now, but there's a place where there's a brother's place out on the north side of town, out off of Sangamon Avenue as you're heading out towards Camp Butler, there's a place that sits back off of there, and it's like where brothers live. And then there's a place there, there's several places in town where nuns live. Anyway, she says, what those are?
A convent?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. She goes, some of those came from the brothers place where the brothers were, the men. And she said some of them came from the convent where the nuns live. And she says these things are given to them to put every earthly possession that they own inside of this trunk. And they said everything that they want to keep of their life when they become a nun, officially become a nun, that's the only box that they can store all their worldly possessions in. So everything that they owned that they wanted to keep had to fit inside one of those trunks.
Okay.
Each person got given a trunk.
Uh-huh.
And that's the only place they can put their worldly possessions. Everything else is given up for God. Everything else before they become, officially a nun or officially a brother or whatever. So I got to thinking about that, and I thought, I'm thinking to myself, why would a spirit follow a box around, a trunk around someplace?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because at one time it held all of your worldly possessions that you owned.
Yeah, and your
things that you treasured,
right,
that you didn't want to get rid of.
And with it in the Springfield area, and with convents and
whatnot,
and
it was about a block or two from Sacred Heart Academy, where there's a convent.
Wow, that's what got you it. Damn, that's really cool.
That's what got me really fascinated in it. And then I started picking up every book I could get my hands on. You got to remember, in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of, they didn't have any TV shows about this.
Mm-hmm.
If it did, it was like Sightings with Leonard Nimoy, and they'd talk about a haunted location. And the books that they had out there wasn't even a whole lot of books at that time.
Right.
But there was a few. Hans Holzer, had some books out, and there was a few authors here and there. But guess what else came out around not long after that, around the same time? The Amityville Horror.
Yep, and that's where it
by Jay Anson. So that I read that, and it's creeped my shit. So I'm was trying to. I don't know. From then on, I wanted answers. I just wanted to know what is causing this, why. And to be honest with you, the main reason that I am a paranormal investigator is because I want to try to get some answers and possibly give some suggestions to people who are experiencing this kind of stuff, because I went through it myself and it was scary. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was scary.
Yep.
And we never saw anything. Well, it was all things that happened. We didn't necessarily see, like an apparition or anything like that. But it was scary, and I thought, if I could get in this and learn something about this stuff and go to these places and try to get some answers, and maybe I can give some suggestions. And I've done that many times over the years. I said, try this. There's a couple things you always want to try beforehand to see if you can deal with something. If not, then sometimes you need some backup,
Right. We have a person in the chat room, David. He's asking about the house that had all the trunks in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see this. Was it the Elijah Ly's house?
It was.
It was. Okay.
They don't really allow investigations in there anymore. We're talking, this was several years ago.
There's a lot of places. The one place I want to go is the one place, I don't know if you've been. I want to go to Norbandy's.
Oh, I've been there. As a matter of fact, I took my class there for an investigation.
You took your class? Okay, I want to know
it
your
wasn't
class.
Norbandy's. It was above right above Norbandy's is the Elijah. It's not the Elijah Isles home. It's the Hickox home, Virgil Hickox home.
Right.
And over the years, it's been many, many different things, as well as it was where Virgil Hickox was with his family. Virgil Hickox was actually an acquaintance of Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, really?
Even though he actually was one of Stephen Douglas's, who was, against Abraham Lincoln. He was on the opposite side. He ran against Abraham Lincoln for things. The little giant, they called him, Stephen Douglas. He worked for Stephen Douglas' campaign, but he knew Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln knew him, and they were on friendly terms.
Right.
But his family used to live there. But then over the years, it's been a funeral home. It's been a florist. It's been this. It's been that. It's been the Sangamo Club for years.
Yeah, the whole thing with
and many, many, many stories. And Norbandy's itself is most definitely haunted, as is the Virgil Hickox house.
Yes, yes. The thing about Norbandy's I love is also it was where they had the Spanish flu outbreak. That's where they literally have a body shoot where and then you had the mob was there, and it was like this. It was like I'm sitting there looking at this building. I'm like, this has to be on my bucket list right here. You got the mob, you got an epidemic to happen. It's like,
yeah. I took my class to the Virgil Hickox house, and we did an investigation, and we got some incredible evidence. By the way, I offer 2 levels of my class. I offer a level 1, which you have to take in order to take level 2. Level 1, we talk about all aspects of the paranormal, including UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, ghost hunting, the whole kit and caboodle. It's 4 2-hour classes. And I've got one coming up in April, and I'll have another level 1 coming up probably in the fall. And then I'll offer a level 2. Level 2, we actually go to a haunted location.
I'm going to give you my debit card through the camera. I want it on the class right now.
But you got to come, because, I mean, you know what? One of the reasons I love doing these classes, because you guys tell me some incredible stories. It's the people that come that I'm like, they tell me some stories that are like, wow, this is incredible stuff.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Your classes, you offer classes at Lincoln Land, and I've heard about these classes before. Yeah. I wanted to go originally, but with my work schedule being swing shift and all that stuff was a little weird. So you do level 1 classes. That's where it's like you talk about everything.
We cover all topics, different types of hauntings. There's many, many different types of hauntings. On the paranormal shows, you only hear about 3 basically, but we talk about, there's many different types. So we cover that, all kinds of things.
Now, what does level 2 cover? Level 2 to get them into the field.
Level 2, we cover the basics of ghost hunting, the first class, we talk about where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, the next class meeting, we go on an investigation. One of the places over the years, let me tell you, I've done a level 2s for several years, and we have never failed. And we go during the day. We have never failed to get incredible evidence, evidence, EVPs, photos, incredible stuff. And it just goes to prove that if a place is haunted, it's haunted it's haunted 24 hours a day. It's not just at nighttime.
Yeah, that's the one thing about some of those shows. I'm not a big fan of Zach Bagans. I'm
No.
That is the growing consensus for a lot of paranormal guys I've noticed.
That is not the way to conduct an investigation.
I have been to I'm forgetting the name of it, and I shouldn't. What is it? In Alton, not Mineral Springs, the house they're restoring.
I don't know.
It's gonna drive me.
There was so many places. I tell you, another place in Alton that we went to that was fascinating was the old Milton Schoolhouse.
Oh,
Even
really?
Ghost Hunters went there and did an investigation. The TV show the original Ghost Hunters.
McPike. Thank you, David. McPike.
McPike. Yeah, McPike. Right up off the road there, the main road. Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah.
Right, McPike. It was like
for years they'd only let you in the basement area.
Yeah, now they're actually letting people in the front, in the upstairs area, like the lower levels, the ground floor. But we went there, and I was blown away because they'd had Zach Bagans on a while back, and he did the whole "this is demonic." He lied about Mr. McPike and the family and all that stuff.
Yeah, they embellish, and it's ridiculous, to be honest with you. I can't watch it. I if I watch it, I laugh through the whole thing. But I can't even watch it. I shut it off. It's like, this is not a way. The sad thing is the new batch of paranormal investigators think that that's acceptable.
Yeah,
it's not acceptable to go in and disrespect. Let me tell you something. You see how they taunt spirits? They'll go in and they'll taunt and they'll dare it. Why do you want to do that to something that doesn't die?
You don't ever go into somebody's home looking to start a fight and accept a glass of tea. They're not going to do that. They're just going to shut you off, or they're going to hurt you.
They're going to mess with you or follow you home, which has happened to those guys before.
Yeah, it's like you're sitting there. If you're a ghost, you're like, this motherfucker just talking about me. I'm following you. You're going to get a poltergeist activity later tonight, boy. Just wait, catch me outside. How about that?
Scratched, they'll get pushed, they'll get all kinds of stuff. Now let me tell you, there's that, when it comes to them kind of shows, they're all about entertainment.
Yes, there has to be a level of entertainment,
and they're trying to make it as creepy and scary as they can. And 9 out of 10 times they automatically jump to, oh, this is demonic or this is something like that. Let me tell you, I've been investigating for 31 plus years now. And let me tell you, that is actually a rare thing.
Demonic is?
Ghosts are common. Ghosts, are relatively common, but there has been maybe 3 or 4 places out of all that time that I went to that I thought something like that was going on. And you know why? It's because at some point in that place's history, someone that was there went looking for it. They started messing with things they shouldn't have been messing, doing things they shouldn't have been doing, like rituals or whatever. And they got something, and they got so scared that they moved out. Well, the poor next person that comes and moves into that house, that doesn't always go away. So, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Let's camera.
Isn't that weird? We're talking about it, and then it goes out. The thing pops out there for a second.
There must be a ghost. We must have a ghost listener who's watching.
I'm telling you. But I mean, I'm not saying those things don't exist, because they do. There's stuff out there, but a lot of times it's because someone at some point went looking for it.
What's the best thing you have gotten at your class? Like, what's the best thing you looked at? Somebody brought it to you, and like, I got this. Like,
man. I'll tell you something that's blown me away, and still to this day, it's some of the best ghost photos I think I've ever seen. And I could dig them up and send them to you.
You you
But
may have
we were
to.
at the Lincoln Square Theater in Decatur. No, they don't allow ghost
Oh,
investigations. That place
I
is haunted as hell.
know. I know. We tried so hard when we first got
Oh my
started.
gosh, that place is haunted. And we captured some stuff in there. Let me tell you, EVPs, and I investigated there a couple times, and we got some incredible stuff. And I took my class there. It was 100-degree day, almost 100 degrees. It was in the 90s, and we went there during the day, and we did an investigation. And everybody was wearing shorts and t-shirts because it was hot. And they don't have the best air conditioning in there, right? It's an old place. It's an old building, which is now they've renovated it and they're having shows and stuff there now. It's a great old theater. It is a fantastic theater.
April says that April actually lives in Decatur. She's taking her kids to the Avon on
The
Thursday.
Avon has activity as well. Yep.
April,
sure
can I
do.
pose as one of your kids and just bring like a backpack of stuff? Because I've wanted to be in there for so long. I want to get in there.
But the Avon is also haunted. But the Lincoln Square Theater is incredibly haunted. And we captured a woman, one of my students, one of the people that went with us, captured a ghost standing. And we did not see it with our eyes. She did not see it. She captured a ghost standing in the balcony with a long sleeve, big fluffy dress on, standing in the balcony, and no face.
That's
no
a ghost.
face. And
That's
this is common with ghosts. This is common with ghost photos. Sometimes they don't have a face, but they have. You can see the body. You can see the body, and she was fully decked out. And there was even pictures where she turned sideways and she's holding a parasol.
I've noticed that there's a lot of videos, and obviously there's hoaxers out there, but there's a lot of pictures and videos of people that capture ghosts, but the face is always either distorted or it's not there or it's covered up. And I don't understand, like, what is it about a ghost where they lose their face?
I don't know.
Maybe that's part of the process of being a spirit is you.
Yeah. I don't know. I do know that that's a common thing because I've seen it time and time again. But it's a fascinating place. And if you go to the Lincoln Square Theater and see a show, because they're having concerts there and stuff now. I saw there's a Doors tribute band.
Yeah, I saw that.
Cool. Coming up, they have some fairly kind of people that used to be popular play there from time to time, and it's like, hey, I would go there in a heartbeat because I'm not scared of the ghosts that are there because they're not bad. They're theater ghosts.
Yeah.
Old theaters, old schools, and old churches are notoriously haunted. So, and they're not always bad spirits. They're just that's where they like to hang out.
Right.
They were there. That lady was fully dressed to go see a show. But the interesting thing is, not only in that photo is there one ghost, there's also a guy sitting out in the audience with a derby hat on.
Are you serious?
There was nobody sitting out there with a derby hat.
So you got two ghosts in one photo. We got
two or three ghosts in one photo.
Wow. I would love to see that photo.
Yep. I'll dig it up for you and send it to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take a step away from ghosts real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, you're big into the paranormal. You said you believe in Sasquatch. You said,
yeah. Oh, yes.
This is where I draw the line. I don't believe in Sasquatch. When it comes to the cryptid realm, I'm very skeptical. Even though I would love to see like the Loch Ness monster or something like that. With it, what is your take on Sasquatch?
Sasquatch is an ancient being. He's been around for a long time. There's a lot of them. Don't think there's a few out in the Pacific Northwest. Did you know that Illinois ranks like 4th in the entire nation for Bigfoot sightings?
Yeah, we've actually had one, I think, recently. We've had a Bigfoot sighting in, let's see, I saw this on the news. There was a Bigfoot sighting in October, and then 2 weeks later, there was a Mothman sighting, they said, in Peoria.
Yeah. And the Mothman sightings in that whole northern area of this state, are rampant.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way over as Rockford, and then all the way in the whole Chicagoland area, and even south of there, Kankakee area. The Mothman sightings are off the charts.
Which
And
they always
there's
say
some big ass thing flying around up there.
they always say there's Mothman is like this cryptid of doom. It predicts doom and all that stuff. Well, it's in Illinois. I mean, look at the Illinois how it is now. But the problem, so you're saying Bigfoot, you think it would be a physical creature or a spiritual type creature?
It's an interdimensional creature.
You're saying interdimensional.
Yeah. It can come and go. It can be a physical creature.
There's a lot of
thus the footprints.
Yeah, there's a lot of
the hair samples. Thus, I mean, it can definitely be a physical creature, but they can also traverse dimensions.
There's a lot of people that are saying that's now the belief now is that originally they thought Bigfoot was a biological creature. They thought it was Gastropithecus, which was one of the largest hominids in North America during the Ice Age. But now there's the belief that it's either, some people claim it's a spirit type animal, like you're saying, where it can enter dimensions, because that's how the Native Americans described it. Some people are going as far as saying it's an alien. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't believe in it because something spotted that regularly. And something, my buddy Bubba, who's a co-host of the show, he up and down believes in Bigfoot. I could show him a picture of King Kong, and he's like, "That's Bigfoot." I'm like, "No, that's not."
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
The big thing with Bigfoot is like, I think the reason is because he's been hoaxed so much. But you're also wanting to see, the thing for me is like, I want to see a body.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Tyler, that you may or may not know. They've had bodies. They already know what these creatures are. Science knows about Bigfoot. When Mount St. Helens went off, they got so many dead bodies from Bigfoot off of Mount St. Helens. As a matter of fact, go on YouTube and type in Mount St. Helens Bigfoot, and you're going to hear some incredible stories from some legitimate type people. People that worked for the armed forces, they've had bodies, Tyler, they know. But you also got to remember that these are very intelligent creatures. They can traverse dimensions, they bury their dead. So, I mean, do they have bodies? They've had bodies, yes. They already know about Bigfoot. They already know that they exist. Maybe it'll come out just like this UFOs. They're finally kind of getting around to admitting that UFOs are real.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
But it doesn't fit in with what they wanted everybody to believe for hundreds of years, is the theory of evolution. And you got to remember that the theory of evolution is just that. It's a theory. It's still called the theory of evolution for a reason. They haven't been able to sign. There's large missing links of gaps. You can't tell me that a creature crawled out of the sea, some kind of a little fish type frog or whatever, and eventually became human. Come on. There's no links to any of that crap.
That is, it's a theory. There's a solid theory, but it's still a theory. Yes,
it's a theory, but there's a lot of theories.
Okay,
and
no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no,
interrupt you. I'm sorry,
but they've had bodies, Tyler. They've had them. You just don't hear about them. Just like they've had UFOs crashed. They've had aliens.
Yes.
You don't hear about those either.
Well, let's talk about that.
Out.
Did you did you watch the UFO?
Absolutely. I just watched Ancient Aliens all day long. They're doing as a matter of fact, it's on right in front of me right now. I got the volume turned down.
What do you think of that? I never thought, here's the thing. I never thought we live in a day and age where the government finally says, is there funds allocated to UFO crash retrievals? And Lou Elizondo says, yes. Has the government investigated these for a long time? Yes. And it's like, there you go. There's your disclosure. They didn't present the body or parade them out for you to see. But what do you think is going on that has the U.S. government saying, all right, we got to start addressing this?
They can't deny it any longer.
You think they can't deny it any longer?
If they want to, they could land on the White House lawn and, they're still going to deny it.
I don't want them
Um,
landing on the White House lawn. I
they
don't want
they
them being
don't want
Biden or
to.
Trump.
They don't want people to think that there's something out there that may be more intelligent than us that has, if they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it a long time ago.
Oh yeah, everybody's always concerned, like, oh, they're going to come here, they're going to invade, it's going to be a war.
No,
Look, they've had
they've
thousands
had
of
their
years.
chance.
Yeah, they would have done it by now.
They've had their chance, and if anything, they're watching us. They need something from us, Tyler. That's why there's so many abductions. There's something that we have that they still need.
Like,
And that's, you if you read a lot of books, and I've been studying UFOs for a long time, I've seen many UFOs. I'm just as fascinated in UFOs as I am about all paranormal stuff.
you've seen UFOs?
I've seen at least half a dozen legit UFOs. Yes. And this could be another topic for another day.
You might have to
weird
be.
frequencies, maybe.
Oh yeah, weird. Rob is all about the UFOs.
As a matter of fact, I talk about some of the UFOs I saw on the newest broadcast of Paranormal Party of 8.
Yes.
So you folks out there, if you're listening, go on Facebook and type in Paranormal Party of 8, and there's some shows posted there that we have done. We've done like what? How many, Russell, have we done? 7 shows all together. So we talk about all different kinds of things, and the last show, the realest recent one that was just posted Saturday, is about UFOs.
Joe Turry, who was in the chat a short while ago.
Yeah, hi Joe.
He just interviewed Rob about Rob's UFO experience he had back in.
I watched that show.
Yeah. Rob had photos. Do you have any photos of your UFOs?
No, and it's not that we haven't tried, but let me tell you, when you're witnessing a UFO, and I witnessed one on my way into Lincoln Land one morning. I worked at Lincoln Land for 35 plus years.
Right.
And I was on my way into work early one morning, and I witnessed a UFO right there by the Glenarm exit, right off of I-55.
Wow. And
it was a big globe-shaped, shiny object that was rising up out of, I'll tell you where I think it was, Tyler. I think they hide in bodies of water. And you know where the overpasses are? They have those little dugout lakes.
Yeah.
That they use to build the overpass.
Yeah.
Some of them suckers are deep.
That has been the big theory, because they also, during this congressional hearing, they revealed a lot of more photos and evidence. And there's some photos and evidence of UFOs coming out of the water, coming out of lakes, oceans. USOs, exactly. And of course, naturally, that's why I hate social media sometimes. They immediately go to the concept of they're not aliens, it's the Atlanteans. No. They're hiding in there because
they're hiding.
It takes a lot of energy and probably a lot of money or alien currency to gather up whatever they're gathering here on Earth and fly back to, let's say, Mars,
wherever,
drop it off and come back. It's like, why not just gather here? There's probably a mothership hidden in the ocean, and they're like, look, we're just going to sit here and let's mess with the monkeys a little bit. Let's mess with them.
I think that I'll tell you what, and I talk about this on that podcast, but it was coming up. It was lifting up from either off of the road. There was a railroad track close by there, but it was lifting up it was coming up from someplace. And I think it just came out of that lake that's off. They have a fence around it at that Glenarm exit. There's a fence around it, and it's right by the railroad tracks. And there's a real deep body of water there. And it's where they dug the holes to build the overpass to get the extra soil to build up the overpasses. It's by an overpass. And I saw it come up. It rose up. It was rising up, and it came up. And it wasn't far from me. I was watching it. It was a perfectly round, silverish. The sun was gleaming off of it. The sun had just rose, and it was shining on it. And it was either glowing or it was just like a silver reflecting the sun. And it came up to a certain point, and it stopped. And it made this weird little wobble like this, kind of wobbled a little bit, and then started heading west. And I was heading north right off of 55 on the frontage road, right off. I'd stopped to get gas there at the gas station, going to take the frontage road to Glenarm and get on the highway to head into work. But I pull off the side of the road and I'm watching this thing. And, it never even occurred to me to take a picture of it because the first thing I'm thinking of is, what the hell am I seeing?
Yeah.
What am I looking at here? Is it a flock of birds? Is it a trash can that's blowing in the wind? What the hell is it? And the more I paid attention to it, the more it occurred to me that, holy crap, that's a UFO.
Skeletor, who is one of our frequent listeners, he was on the show back this summer. He works on an oil rig down in Louisiana.
Oh, sweet.
And he says they see him all the time. We were on the air one day and he was talking about they cut the power, their radio kept messing up, and sonar kept detecting this massive thing underneath the water. He said it was almost as big as the rig, the derrick, which it's like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
As
a matter of fact, Russell, who's sitting here right next to me, he tells a story about a rig on the river, and his dad was it your dad that experienced or a friend? Yeah. No, it's on the podcast. It's on the Paranormal Party of 8 podcast. Listen to it. He tells the story of a guy experiencing that. And yeah, I believe that.
Wow.
And, they're all around. They're all around, and there seems to be more of them.
Well, I've had 3 instances, and I thought one was legit where I saw a UFO, and the other 2 I found out it was a jet flying overhead. And then the other one just happened recently where some idiot decided to fly a drone at 3:00 in the morning, But we went to the Carrollton house years ago.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Carrollton Alms House?
No, I've been to Carrollton. I love Carrollton. But you go through Carrollton to get to that house we talked about earlier. By the river. But no, I haven't been there, but I've heard about it.
The Carrollton Alms House, unfortunately, she was
it burnt down or fell down.
A kid decided he wanted to set fire to it.
It was haunted there. I know.
It was. I've been there multiple times, and it was haunted. I've seen nothing full body, but you hear footsteps, you hear voices, conversations. We had one kid get scratched, which was interesting, and that was the only time I've ever seen that. But it was a 3-story building. It was before they had institutions here in Illinois. It was a poorhouse. A lot of people that were disabled or homeless went there.
It's like Ashmore States down in Coles County.
Exactly. And I'd love to go to Ashmore.
I've been there several times.
I'd love to go to Ashmore.
It is haunted for sure. I'm telling you, it's 100% haunted. I've had some experiences.
We were up. Yeah. David's in the chat. He's even said there's orbs in the camera, which for me, orbs, I'm like, that could be dust, but there's a couple of pictures he's taken. I'm like, that might be something there if it's glowing. Yeah. But we were up on the 3rd floor, which was a balcony bell tower type thing. It was the middle of the summer. It was hot. It was muggy. It had just stormed. It was like July or something like that. So it was overcast. You can see the storm clouds moving past. And I'm looking over I'm looking around the area, and I'm looking at all this corn and all that stuff. You can see the corn in the field and everything. I look up in the sky. There's an orange dot up there, and I'm just staring at it. I'm like, well, that's weird because there's all these clouds. What is that? And I look at my buddy. I'm like, what do you think that is? He goes, somebody's flying an airplane. An airplane at 2:00 in the morning with a storm in the area. Could be a drone. So he goes downstairs. I'm watching this thing. I'm about ready to leave, and all of a sudden, this thing just came out of the sky, flew over the tree line, down, it crossed the road. It got low to the point you could see the glow. It looked like an orange basketball just glowing.
Yeah.
And it was flying along the road. It flew over the cord. You could see the light reflecting off the ground.
That's wild.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this thing just goes back up in the air and just goes back up in the sky and disappears.
That was a classic UFO you just described.
So I did see a UFO.
You saw a UFO. 100%.
Rob busted my bubble while back saying
100%.
you might have seen ball lightning, and I'm like, it might have been ball lightning.
There ain't no damn ball lightning like that. That's not how ball lightning reacts. You saw a UFO, buddy.
It was the size of a it had to be like the size of like a basketball or beach ball. It was glowing bright orange, and it was. Oh, I'm so happy I saw one finally. Yes.
You can lay claim to that. You saw a UFO. Well, you got to remember what UFO means: unidentified flying object,
Yes. Now,
or
whether that was
unidentified aerial phenomena. They call them
yeah.
UAPs. It's all the same thing.
Now, whether that was an alien spacecraft or alien probe,
But it
or
was
that
unidentified,
it
and it
was
was
unidentified.
flying,
Yes.
and it was an object. So you saw a UFO legit.
Yeah.
Whether it was explainable or not eventually, but it was unidentified.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, is I felt the same way as you, because when you saw that one that was off the Glenarm exit, you didn't think to take a photo.
No, I'm just looking at it, trying to figure out what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
It didn't occur to me till I left and I was on my way to work. Damn, I should have took a picture of it.
I'm a ghost hunter. I'm in a haunted house. I have all this equipment, cameras, cell phones. I forgot to take a photo of this son of a bitch.
Yeah,
and I have hated myself for that.
Well, that's
ever
why.
since.
That's why we don't see Bigfoot pictures either. It's like it happens in a matter of minutes or seconds sometimes.
It's like
if
the
something
shock
walks
value,
across
yeah.
the road, you don't. The first thing you're thinking about. That's why a lot of them you see are, I think, fake, because, to be honest with you, if you're just driving down the road or you see something, it's for a short amount of time, and you're just trying to figure out what the hell you're looking at. Is that a deer? What is that? If I'm in the South, is that a bear? What the hell is that? Is that a big dog? And so you're trying to figure it out. You don't always have time to take a photo.
Right.
And it's not the first thing you think about. Even when you see a ghost, that's not the first thing you think about. Your mind is trying to figure out, what the hell am I looking at?
Exactly.
What is this that I'm seeing?
Exactly.
And sometimes by the time you're like trying to figure out what it is, it's gone.
Yeah, I had one job to catch stuff, and I failed it with the UFO. That's for sure. But
well, don't feel bad, because I don't have any UFO pictures that I can speak of. When I saw one at school, I also talk about this on the podcast. I was at Lincoln Land, and it was in broad daylight in the afternoon. Went out to enjoy the weather, and there were some friends out there, and they were out smoking a cigarette, and we all witnessed a UFO. And one of the girls did try to take a picture of it. Guess what? It didn't show up.
Oh.
It just wasn't there. And I saw her point it directly at it, and it wasn't that high up in the air. And it did not show up. It did not show up.
Do you guys, is there anybody else on your podcast that has like seen UFOs or believes in UFOs? I know you said your friend, what's your friend's name again? That's sitting there with you?
Russell. That's Russell.
I know Russell said he has a story about a rig on the river.
Yeah, he tells about that. He tells the whole story on that. Yeah, on that latest podcast.
Yeah, and we're not going to have him tell it here. If you want to hear that story, go on Paranormal Party of 8 and listen to Russell talk about it.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with the UFO thing? Do you think it's going to be
like
it's?
I don't know. It's getting to a stage where you got to remember, and this goes with Bigfoot sightings or any kind of cryptid sighting as well as UFOs. 98% of them don't get reported.
That is true. There's a lot of people who are like, I don't want to be, like.
I've heard the most amazing stories, and I said, "Did you report this?" They're like, "No, I don't want to sound crazy. I don't want to sound like I'm." Come on, people are more accepting of this now. People, they took a poll not that long ago, and the majority of people believe that UFOs exist, strange creatures exist. There are things out there that are and ghosts. There's an incredible amount of people that believe in ghosts. Well, they've had experiences. So, I mean, the world is loosening up. Look at all the movies it's been on, Yeah. Steven Spielberg. And is it pouring out there? I hear rain. It's storming here.
I'm hearing some rain up here in Jacksonville, too.
But yeah, I mean, and
that's right. Yeah. Skeletor told us a while back he had a friend of his who claimed he was abducted by aliens once.
I've got a couple friends that are abductees.
You have friends who are abductees?
Yes.
I would love to talk to those guys.
Yes.
But
and guess what? Some of them come to my discussion group, which I haven't even gotten to yet. I host a monthly discussion group, except the next one won't be till February because I always shut it down at the holidays in January because of the weather and the holidays.
You have a discussion group. Where is that? Where can they
Prairie Land Paranormal Consortium. Now, I don't know where it's going to be yet, but I'll let people know. But I did host it at Lincoln Land for a couple of years. I actually just moved back to Illinois. I was living in South Carolina for 2 years.
Oh, really?
And I just moved back in August back to Illinois. So, but my friend Tim Hart took over for me but we've been doing the discussion group for about 13, 14 years. It's open to the public. Anybody can come. We talk about any and all things paranormal. We run from 1 to 4. And we share snacks, and we just sit around and tell stories and talk about the paranormal. They have guest speakers and all kinds of crazy stuff. And we had it at Lincoln Land for many years. And when I left the state, Tim started having it at the Chatham Public Library here in Chatham, and just up the road. And that, but Tim just moved to Michigan. So I've taken it back over, and I'm going to try to see if I can get it moved back to Lincoln Land, hopefully. And then we've got more room there where people can come, because the room in Chatham, although it's a nice room, it doesn't hold a whole lot of people. But
right. I'm definitely going to go to the next one.
But I'll let you
sure.
know.
Yeah.
When this comes up. Don't forget, my classes are coming up in April. Now, there's also my friend Lauren Hamilton, who teaches ghost hunting classes through Lincoln Land. He's a buddy of mine that lives in the Jacksonville area, but he also teaches. But his class is called Ghost Hunting 101. Or something like that. Mine's called. Let me pull it up here because I had it on my screen. Let me pull it up here.
If you want,
I'll give you the exact dates.
I'm about to say, you can send that to me on Messenger so I can actually post it up here if you want.
Yeah, it is Introduction to Ghost and the Paranormal Level 1. And it's going to be through Lincoln Land, and it's through the Community Learning or Community Education Department. And it's going to be Wednesday, April 2nd through the 23rd on Wednesday evenings. It's from 6 to 8. So starts April 2nd, and it's going to be Wednesday nights until the 23rd.
Lauren Hamilton works at JPD.
Yeah.
That's why I thought I have met him before.
Yeah, he teaches the ghost, but he only concentrates on ghost hunting. That's it. He doesn't cover a whole other bunch of topics like we do. So that's how my class differs from his. And I have been teaching them at Lincoln Land for many, many years.
Right.
So I'm going to be going back to doing that. So I hope you guys come and join us. Honestly, it's a blast. We have a blast, and we have guest speakers. I have people who live in the haunted houses come in and tell their stories. I have people that's experienced all different. Sometimes we have a UFO person come in. Sometimes we have a Bigfoot person come in. So we have some interesting stuff. We cover a wide gamut of stuff. So.
There's a lot with the paranormal. There's a lot you could cover, really, because it's so much. I got 2 more questions, honestly, for you. Okay, you mentioned where you stand. Obviously, we know where you stand with ghosts. We know where you stand with Bigfoot. We know where you stand with aliens. What about other cryptids, like, for example, the Loch Ness Monster? Because I've always been a lake monster fan. I'm a huge paleo junkie. I mean, for God's sakes, my fiance got somebody to carve that for me for my birthday.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
That's a carving of an Allosaurus skull.
Yeah.
Or Allosaurus face. But where do you stand on some of those? There's a few cryptids that are spotted around here in Illinois, obviously, besides Bigfoot. Where do you stand on the idea of some species might have survived extinction or a new species?
Totally open to it.
You're totally open to it.
Totally open-minded about, there's not much that can surprise me that I hear anymore. I'm fascinated. It blows my mind, but I've heard some pretty wild stories about different kinds of creatures. And they're here. My son-in-law saw a Bigfoot right here in Auburn.
Yeah, there was a couple Bigfoot sightings a while back in Auburn, if I recall.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it was a cold morning. It was snowing, freezing cold outside. And they live close to the railroad tracks, and it was walking up the railroad tracks close to some woods in the back.
Wow, yeah, there's a lot of those.
And he goes, "What the hell is that person?" In the daybreak, it was just early morning. Why is that person walking down the railroad tracks? And he got to looking at it, and this thing was massive. And it had arms longer than a human. It was dark, kind of a dark brownish color. and he watched it, and it just went behind the woods in back of his house. And now here's another thing. Now you may think this sounds strange, but think about it.
Mm-hmm.
If Bigfoot exists, and a friend of mine says he's witnessed this before. He's a Bigfoot researcher. He's been doing it for years. And in Southern Illinois, he says, Carl, he said the Bigfoot are riding the trains.
I could see that.
He said that, think about the train tracks. He said, look at how many of them go in faraway places with woods, surrounded by woods.
Yeah.
He says, these things are hopping on the trains because I know in Auburn, they stop right behind my daughter's house. And anything can get on or off at any time. And he says what they're doing is they're getting on these trains and they're getting in between the cars and they're curling up into a ball and they're hiding on the train. And he says, I seen one in Southern Illinois. He says, I had a friend that I met down there by the railroad tracks where sightings had been. And he says he witnessed them getting on the train and sitting in between the train. And he said, Carl, this train went by. He says, look in between the cars. Look in between the cars. So he started looking. My friend Stan, he looked in between the cars. And he said, I saw one. I could swear I saw one on that train.
Would also explain how they're able to get
get
around, get through towns, because nobody's going to expect something in a train, tucked up in between the train cars.
Right.
Unless you're working the railroad, which I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if there's been any railroad sighting, railroad workers who've seen it and can verify that's a possibility.
I'll almost bet you that's happened. And they've been spotted in Taylorville area, especially around the South Fork of the Sangamon River. They've been spotted all along the Sangamon River. As a matter of fact, one of the police officers that worked at the Taylor, because I taught my class down in Taylorville, also. There's one of the police officers that works at the Lincoln Land Taylorville Center. His wife has seen it a couple of times driving into work near the South Fork of the Sangamon River by a bridge. She's seen Bigfoot a couple of times.
Wow.
We're talking about a police officer, and you would hope that they're honest.
The police officer ones, there's several police officer ones. There's also dash cam photos, dash cam videos. I gotta admit, those would seem more legitimate to me, because what's a police officer gonna gain from saying, I saw this, or presenting a video of a Bigfoot crossing the road, as opposed to like a TikTok person who claims he sees one just chilling in the woods and it just happens to look over at him while it's sniffing a leaf. That's the new one that came out a couple months ago. I still don't know about that.
Yeah, that one, I've seen it.
Hi, Virgil.
You don't know. Skeletor said they got skunk apes down where he's at. And then there's another form of, it's another form of these creatures. They vary in different parts of the United States sometimes. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are thinner, some are fatter. So depending on where they're at, what they're eating, there's different breeds. Now, you talked earlier about, possibly Bigfoot being an alien.
Yes.
And there has actually been people witness unidentified aircraft landing and Bigfoot type creatures coming out of them. Now, we're talking about the Bigfoot creatures that are only about 4 or 5 foot. They're hairy, their arms hang down low, and they only have 3 toes.
Maybe
it's like a different type of a hairy alien type creature. Is it the same Bigfoot that we see in the United States? Probably not. There's various types, just like there are of people. There's white ones. There has been a white one spotted over by Decatur, Illinois. Do you know Lauren Coleman? He's on all the Bigfoot shows. He's from Decatur, Illinois. That's where he's from. That's his hometown.
I've heard the name before.
Yeah, he runs the Bigfoot place. He's on all the Bigfoot TV shows. Lauren Coleman, and he's written books on Bigfoot, and he's one of the top cryptid person that they talk to on the shows. But he's from Decatur, Illinois. There's been sightings in Springfield. I had a good friend of mine see one out by Sangamon State University.
I remember there was like, what was it? It was last year. There was a couple of sightings just on the outskirts of Springfield, if I recall.
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly, here's the thing. I think they're seeing something, but I don't know. I don't know if like what they're seeing is legitimate because I'm still on that fence. It's like earlier I said, talked about the Loch Ness Monster. I want to believe in the Loch Ness Monster, but still at the same time, where's the body? And that's the thing.
Yeah, well, that's just that they've had bodies just like they've had bodies of aliens, but do you see them?
Bodies of the Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah, they're not a lot about the Loch Ness Monster. I don't know. I have no doubt that probably exists. I mean, they only know about a small number. They see things in the ocean all the time that they've never seen.
We know more about space than we do our own oceans and lakes. Yeah. You can't tell me. And recently they've had a lot of sonar glimpses that show something in like Loch Ness or Lake Champlain, Lake Champlain that are like
Champ. Yeah.
Yep. Those are, and it's like, here's the thing. Everybody likes the ghosts. Everybody likes the UFOs. Everyone likes the Bigfoot. I'm in the minority because I like the lake monsters, and I'm in the middle of a cornfield area. There's no lake monsters.
I love all that stuff. Anything unexplained, throw it at me, baby. I'll listen to you. I'll tell you some stories. What I know and what I've experienced, or things that have been told to me. I mean, that's one of the things we do in class is we sit around, we tell stories, and it's like, here's my experience. Let me tell you what happened to me. And same with the students, let me tell you what happened to us,
Right.
And, one of the first things I ask people when they take my class, I said, who believes in any of this stuff? I mean, who actually in here believes any of this stuff? And about half of the class raises their hand. The other half either is just too embarrassed to put up their hand, or they're skeptic. And it's good to be a skeptic. Absolutely. Right. But you know what? I've had those people come up to me after the class or when we take a break, and they say, I don't really believe in this, but let me tell you the story. And they tell me one of the wildest, damn messed up stories you ever heard of some of the most incredible things that I've ever heard in a story. And then after the story, I'm like, holy crap. You honestly, you don't believe that this stuff exists? And then they're like, well, maybe, so it's fun. It's fun. And you learn a lot, and we talk about a lot. And come sign up for my class by all means.
Definitely.
And you could tell your story about the Havana Gym. Maybe we could even get in there. Do they still let people in there?
Oh yeah. I'm actually planning something for the summer coming up, and I'd be happy to take you along. I know the guys from Opagos, Jonathan and Heaven, they're wanting to go, and I'm thinking we might just do like a big. I can tell you right now, if you're wanting the podcast out there, the reception is horrible. It's like, bro.
Well, we can go there and tell our stories and share our footage or whatever.
Share our footage, do a little investigating and all that stuff. Yeah. And the last question I have, because we've been going on for an hour and a half. I don't think you. Yeah.
Okay. I would talk for nonstop about this stuff.
You almost caught up to Ray Lytle's record, which is 2.5 hours. And after we were done, he was like, "That was a good interview, but motherfucker, I gotta piss." So he was gone. But the next question I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a paranormal investigator, and ask every ghost hunter this question: dream location.
Oh, there's a few. I would love to go to Europe sometime and investigate some of the. The oldest place in the United States that we can tout is like Salem, Massachusetts, or the places that there's not many places. We're talking. We think it's old in this country if we're talking the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. Over in Europe, we're talking, 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, 1500s. I mean, there's a lot of places over in Europe I would like to go to, but in the United States, a place that I would love to go to that I haven't been, surprisingly, even though I've been investigating for so long, is Waverly Hills Sanitarium.
Yeah, everyone wants to go
in
to
Kentucky.
Waverly.
It's not that
Yeah.
far. It's not that
Wilhite,
far. I've never been there, and I would like to
Jason-
check it out sometime.
Jason Wilhite, who is also part of the show, he's also co-host. He's been trying to get Waverly Hills set up for years for a Wrestling for a Cure charity thing. And I promised the guys on Opa Ghost, and I'll promise you, if we get something set up, you'll be the first to know.
Yeah, I would love to go there and just say I've been there. Because I have no doubt it's haunted. I've heard plenty of stories of my friends have been there and they've had crazy things go on, and just would like to say, hey, I've been there. I've done that.
April has been to Waverly. Yep, she's been there.
Yeah.
My dream location is Waverly, but there's also one above Waverly that's actually local, actually here in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
and that's the old Jacksonville institution in Community Park. Yes. I have heard stories from people.
Yeah.
I have heard people refuse to even go into Community Park anymore because of it.
Yeah.
And David can verify this. He's in the chat room watching. We have went to the mayor to try and get in here. We have went to Jacksonville Police Department to try and get in here, because if you're going to go in there, there's been a lot of people who've been arrested on those grounds because of obviously.
Well, people are rude, and they don't have to be rude. You just need to ask nicely. You tell them, your credentials, tell them what you do. And then a lot of times you'd be surprised at what just being nice and respectful.
It's not really the fact that people are being rude. It's the fact that like people have been on the grounds before and they've been arrested for like drugs or drinking, vandalizing, all that stuff. But and another one that he also mentions is Norris Hospital, which is right across from the old McMurray School. But Jacksonville Developmental Center, JDC. I've heard so many stories. I've talked with people who work there. Loaded. Yeah, they even say yes, there are tunnels, because the rumor is there's a tunnel-like network that starts at JDC and goes out to like Diamond Grove, and then goes downtown, because that's where they tunneled a lot of the patients who were dealing with tuberculosis back in the day during this big outbreak. But what we've gathered is the state still owns the buildings, but Jacksonville, for some reason, owns the grounds. It is a weird legal dispute. Now, according to the mayor, originally, the state was supposed to give the buildings back to Jacksonville in 2018. So Jacksonville could do with the buildings with whatever they wanted. Either, this is what I've heard. Are you still there? Or are you?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah,
I thought you froze.
I'm listening.
I thought you froze up again. But it is a weird legal battle because Jacksonville wanted to fix them up. They originally wanted to sell the buildings, kind of what they did with McMurray here in Jacksonville, where they sell them off.
That place is haunted too.
That place, I have been in McMurray. That is haunted. Yes, I would love.
So is Illinois College. I've got a little story about that.
Illinois College. I've heard a story about that too. Yeah, but the problem with JDC is that when the building was closed down in 2000, it was 2012 or 2013 when it closed down. The plan was that Jacksonville would get the full property and the buildings back by 2018. 2018 came and went. It never happened. Jacksonville's tried multiple times to get the buildings back. It won't work. Now the buildings are in such disarray and disrepair. For a while there,
legal issues.
For a while there, because they were tied up in such legal issues. Jacksonville couldn't even mow the grass in that area. Their city workers couldn't mow the grass. Their city workers couldn't go on that property. They had to get volunteers to do it. And that's when finally Illinois gave the grounds back to Jacksonville, but not the buildings. So it is a bizarre legal battle. And there's talks now of possibly demolishing JDC. And I'm just like, I don't care if I go to jail. If it's going to get demolished, I will go in there and just take a camcorder and do what I can.
They probably be a lot of, it probably is in disrepair, and they don't want anybody falling through the floors, and they don't want to get sued. And it's probably, there's a lot of good places that are like that. They're just simply crumbling.
And, like you talked about the Decatur Theater a while ago, and where you got that photo at, and how they don't let ghost
Yeah.
hunting groups in there.
The Lincoln Theater.
Lincoln Theater, thank you. There's unfortunately a lot of places where they used to open up the ghost hunting, and they don't anymore because
Right.
people are unfortunately disrespectful, like
They
Zach
are.
Bagans.
Yeah. And it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing. We're trying to go in with legit. We're not going to act up. We're not going to act stupid. We're not going to.
Nope.
We want to do some scientific investigation. We're not going to mess with the spirits. We just want to find out what's here. Be respectful, people. Be respectful. Don't go playing with these things. They don't die. They can follow you home.
Yeah.
They can do stuff. So be careful out there. Be careful out there.
And be respectful too, because
Yes.
if you end up doing something like what happened with Carrollton House or what happened with some of these other areas, eventually you're going to ruin a good thing for the rest of us paranormal investigators, and you're going to get what is a potential hotbed for someone, which might be a treasure mine where they all of a sudden they make contact with a spirit or they bring back evidence of a spirit. You're going to get that place taken off the map because of your antics.
Yep.
It's kind of like with Mineral Springs,
Rent it for all of us.
Yeah, Mineral Springs is one of my favorite places. I love that place. But the fact that it's a new owner and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to rent out to a ghost." It's like, damn it, that was such a beautiful place to go to. I would.
What are they going to do with it? Do you know?
I think the way they're talking, they're going to keep.
Because they haven't rented rooms there for a long time. I know it's not. I don't know if the hotel part is up to par or not.
I'm not sure, but I learned about this just last month. I don't know what they have planned. I would take it the shops are probably going to stay in the downstairs area, which if that's the case, I'll go to each shop for an hour with a REM pod and EVP and just say, "Oh, I'm just window shopping. Don't worry," and buy a few things off them. But the real treasure is the dance room. The real treasure is the bottling room, the Turkish bath. I don't know what they're going to do with it.
Right.
Because those areas, while they're beautiful and they're just like they were when they were first built, they are in disrepair. So I don't know what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. Well,
it's just sad. Maybe
who knows? Maybe after he's been there a while and he has some things happen, he'll change his mind. Whoever the owners are.
Right. Or maybe what he'll do is he'll be like, he'll do like McPike, where he's like, I can make some money off this. Why not? I mean, if I had a location, I think what McPike does is the best idea, where they let people come in, and they're doing independent investigations now. I heard they're letting people come in, actual investigators, and actually pay to have the whole building to themselves, and they'll be told, okay, I got to come with you all night, but these locations are off limits, and they'll go and investigate.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way, because that's more money that you could put into refurbishing and restoring a beautiful structure like that.
If that's what they actually do with it, yeah. I mean, so many people claim that's what they're going to do, and then it doesn't go. I do know for a fact, because Rob and Terry's a good friend of mine, that is what happens to Ashmore. Any money that he makes off of investigations there, and let me tell you, if you ever go to Ashmore, go during the day. That's when the place was most active.
We've had
during the day. That's when there's wild stuff happen there during the day. That's when the place was really active.
Yeah, Rob and Terry.
And it's cheaper.
Rob and Terry, I was going to bring him on, and unfortunately, I got so busy with everything going on, and now he's busy. And it's like
he puts all the money he makes back into that building.
But I would love to go to Ashmore and just rent that out and be
it's
like,
a great place, great location. I've had a couple experiences there. Maybe we could talk about that on another show.
Maybe we could. Well, one more thing before we get out of here, and I'm doing this to every podcast so far. Every podcast I've interviewed has taken this challenge, and I'm going to issue this challenge to you guys, the Paranormal Party of 8. The Best Damn Podcast here, we're holding a contest. We are heavily invested in an organization called Wrestling for a Cure. Jason Wilhite, he's one of the owners of that show. Also, Tim Gibbons owns that organization. 100% of their proceeds they make go to St. Jude's for cancer research for children.
That's a good one.
And I had participated. In fact, I'm probably next week for the November fire sale. We do fire sales on the show. I'm about to do something really stupid where I'm going to eat the stuff you probably don't want to eat after Thanksgiving for donations. But we're holding a contest for all the podcasts we've been interviewing, okay? And so far, everybody has said yes. We're doing a Battle of the Podcast tournament.
Okay.
And how it works is the podcast that raises the most money, we will provide you a link and we'll help you set it up, and you can post this on your Facebook page. You could cost nothing.
Right.
Nothing. It's 100% free. All you got to do is say, post this link up and say, hey, help us win this championship. The podcast, by July 13th, the podcast that has raised the most money for St. Jude's, for Wrestling for a Cure, using their link, will win a custom-made, basically a wrestling championship title with their logo on it.
Cool.
Which, let's be honest, you could walk into your classroom, you could just throw that thing over your shoulder.
My belt.
Here, guys. The champ here. Yep. Let's talk about this. Who wants to speak to the champion here?
Yeah.
I mean, we could.
My cousin Laura Richter she was huge with raising money for St. Jude for many years. She hosted many events, even some paranormal events in the area. For years and years, she was very active with St. Jude. It's a good cause, no doubt, no doubt.
My question is: would the Paranormal Party of 8 like to be the 5th participant? So far, it's Notorious Escapades, it's Ray Lytle's Morning Disaster, it's Opa Ghost, and Weird Frequencies. I just went ahead and signed Weird Frequencies up to
I don't see why not. I'll talk it over with the others, but I don't see any reason why not. So
right, I will get you a link.
Anything to help the kids. If we can get anything to help, anything helps. Every little bit helps.
Oh yes.
And I see Amanda saying that the Greenwood Cemetery has been vandalized. Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. It's terrible, Amanda. People go out there and they do. Oh, hey, there's Patty. Carl, tell everyone interesting show tonight. That's nice. But yeah, I mean, anything to help the kids. Come on.
I take it, Patty. What was that? Was that? Oh, that's
Russell's phone.
I forget you have Russell next to you. I keep forgetting he's there.
Makes little squeaking noises.
I actually kind of wanted to bring him on to talk to him. I guess we'll bring him on another date. So
hey, let's do this again. Why not?
Oh, absolutely. But
we can get on Weird Frequencies and talk about weirder stuff. So
hell yes, but I'll definitely get you a link to that, and we'll get you set up. Welcome to the Battle of the Podcast. Thank
you for inviting me on. Hey, people, go sign up for my class. Call Lincoln Land. It's a community education or learning. They start in April, Wednesday nights in April, from the 2nd to the 23rd, I believe it was. Sign up. I think you'll have a blast. I think you'll have fun. I think you'll learn a lot about the paranormal. And then you can sign up for level 2. And you know that anytime you've ever taken a level 1, you can always sign up from then on for any level 2s that I offer. And it's a prerequisite to take level 1 before level 2. But if you've at any point taken level 1, you can always sign up for the level 2s. So that's cool.
I'm going to tell you right now, if I can get my work schedule set up, I'm going to sign up for the classes, because everybody knows me. I love the paranormal for sure.
Yeah. I hope to see you.
Oh, Corey just jumped on. Corey's one of our big Bigfoot fans.
Hi, Corey.
Yeah. So, and then Damon.
That's a Damon. Damon is a wonderful, wonderful psychic medium. Also, he's part of our Paranormal Party of 8, and wonderful. We got some good people on that group of 8 people, and it's like I said, we're all equally into this, and we're all been fascinating, and we all have experiences. So keep tuned in to us too from time to time. Our show only runs about how long does our show run? About an hour? 45 minutes to an hour. It's not long.
Yeah. So
yeah, pop on. This newest show is about UFOs. Our next show, who knows what it'll be about. The next show coming up is going to be about ghosts. We talk about local ghosts of Springfield ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I tell some of the stories I told tonight. So, yeah.
I've listened to a couple episodes, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you right now, you definitely want to follow these guys if you're into this kind of stuff, the paranormal, and if you're like I am, of course, and if you're into, honestly, from the way it sounded on the episodes, honest, legitimate discussion.
Yeah.
Not just, like, oh, I saw this. Cool. What'd you see? Honest discussion. Like, actual questions were asked about this person's experience, that person's. Definitely check them out. It is a Paranormal Party of 8. Their podcast is posted right there. That's their Facebook page. Go ahead and go follow them and keep up to date with them. Yeah,
and you can look me up too. My by the name, and I'll be posting when I'm going to be having the paranormal discussion groups, the Prairieland Paranormal Discussion Group. I'm also got, if you want to really listen to some old interview shows, I've also look up Carl Jones Paranormal on YouTube. And there's maybe 3 or 4 old interviews of me on there talking about all things paranormal. So,
let me see if I can find that real quick so I can.
Yeah, there's on YouTube. Do a search for Carl Jones Paranormal. I mean, there's a lot of Carl Joneses, but you'll see those some interviews with me that I posted out there years ago. So one's from like 2011, one's from 2017.
I got one here called Paranormal Bazaar
Bizarre, yes, that's a good one. Yeah,
I'll go ahead and post that one there. And now,
that's a good one. Yeah.
So
I tell my story about how I got into it and all that stuff. Yeah,
there's a link if you want to watch some of Carl's earlier interviews.
Yeah.
So
all right. Well,
we're gonna have to do this again sometime, man.
Let's
for
do
sure.
it.
And I'll tell you right now, whenever we get a ghost hunt coming up this spring or summer, if it's something big like JDC, I'm definitely going to hit you up first, buddy.
Do it.
Get in there.
I'll try to dig up those pictures from the Lincoln Theater and send them to you.
Yep. So, all right, everybody, that's it for us. Be sure to follow the Paranormal Party of 8. It's a really good, really new podcast. Definitely showing some love. Very casual. But then again, you start a podcast and learn how to do a podcast. Am I right?
Well, it's just voice. We don't have any video, but it's just us sitting around the table talking. That's it.
Yep.
We're eating.
You're probably doing a lot better with your podcast than Jake Paul and Mike Tyson's boxing fight did the other night. I fought with Netflix more than anything else.
That's what people say.
Yep.
They said that they just kept refreshing, and there was too many people hitting it. Too many people in it.
Yep. All right, everybody. This has been Carl Jones. We will be back Wednesday with another edition of Sage Shenanigans. I got to work. Sage will be hosting. I'll be back Friday, and I will have news on your next fire sale. Until then, on behalf of the cast of the Best
Take care, everyone. Hope to see you. Hope to see you soon.
That's Carl Jones of the Paranormal Party of 8 and Paranormal Investigator. I'm just going to call him the real-life Egon Spangler. And I'm Tyler. We'll see you all in the next episode. So long, everybody.
Take care.